I'm Emile Ghessen, a former British Royal Marine Commando who served in the military for 12 years. Over the years, I saw extensive action in Iraq and Afghanistan. My father is from Syria and came to the UK in the early 1970s. With my family still in Syria, I'm concerned for their well-being with the ongoing civil war and the rise of Islamic State. As a child, I went to a quiet Church of England school in Westminster, London. And from an early age, I knew I wanted to join the military. However, not all students from this school shared the same outlook in life. One of those students, named Mohammed Emwazi, would become known as the infamous Jihadi John.
This British man has to pay the price for your promise, Cameron, to arm the Peshmerga against the Islamic State. Ironically, he has spent a decade of his life serving under the same Royal Air Force that is responsible for delivering those arms.
The media covered stories of Western men and women like Jihadi John who were travelling to Iraq and Syria to join the terror group Islamic State. But there were also reports emerging of men and women heading to the same region to volunteer to fight against Islamic State. Being a former military man and with family still in Syria, I was interested to find out why so many volunteers, many with little knowledge of the region, were prepared to pick up arms and take on the world's most feared terrorist organisation. I've no experience as a journalist or documentary filmmaker, but feel by picking up a camera rather than a rifle, I will gain a better understanding which will allow me to provide others with an insight into why these men are choosing to fight against Islamic State as volunteers. To find out how these men are getting to Iraq and Syria, I'll be told to go on Facebook, join certain groups, meet certain personalities that facilitate the movement of Western volunteers to get to the front line to battle Islamic State. I want to understand why volunteer fighters, many of whom have no previous military experience, think they can actually make a difference against Islamic State. This isn't the first time international volunteers have travelled to a war zone to fight. During the Spanish Civil War between 1936 to 1939, over 35,000 men and women from over 50 countries volunteered to fight for the Spanish Republic against fascism. Many of these volunteers formed international brigades made solely of foreign national volunteers. On Facebook, I found a modern-day international volunteer group called the Legion. The group is made up of British and American volunteers who are planning on heading to Iraq in the coming weeks to fight. Steve, their leader, has agreed to meet and explains to me his motives for volunteering.
All right, mate.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
No worries,
Take
buddy.
the time to meet me. Take a seat. So when was it actually that you first thought, right, I've got to do this? What was it? Was it something you saw on television? Was it something personal?
For me, personally, it was seeing the kids, it was seeing children being forced into refugee camps. And everybody says, oh, look, you've seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely fine, but at some point you see something, it doesn't matter if you've seen it before, it changes you. And this time round, I just went, I don't want to watch another group of children dying in the cold, and we can't let this kind of stuff happen.
So you're flying in 2 days' time. Are you flying by yourself, or are you flying with other people?
Flying from London, and then I fly into Germany.
Right,
and in Germany, I meet up with some other foreign nationals, mainly Canadians and Americans, and an Australian.
So you've been in contact with these people before?
We've been in contact for a good couple of months now.
Yeah.
Some of these have been planning to go out there for even longer than I have.
But some people might say that you're doing it for your own benefits. How can you justify it and explain to these people why you want to do that and why you're so passionate about it?
Just that, I've got 2 kids and I've got a wife. That for me is my main explanation. When people turn around and say, why are you doing it? Stay here. Well, how about if we all just turn around and stay here and stay here? ISIS gets bigger, that nobody does anything about it. I'm not stupid enough to think 10 Brits going over there are going to make any kind of difference. Not in the grand scheme of things.
So what would you call yourself? Would you call yourself a freedom fighter, a mercenary?
No, we're volunteers.
So you're volunteers?
I'm joining Peshmerga as a volunteer. I come under Peshmerga rule.
Are you nervous? Are you scared?
Of course I'm nervous. Anybody who says they're not nervous is a bloody liar or a damn fool. And, at the moment, I'm not really too sure which one of the two I am. I think I'm a mixture of the both and something else. I am nervous. Of course I'm nervous. But as I said before, in my way of thinking, it's when it's your time, it's your time. I'm not an overly religious man, but I am a Roman Catholic. And I think, we have got a plan.
So do you feel as that when you go out there, they're going to respect you for being a Westerner that's given up his home life, given up his family?
I think they're going to be suspicious. They're going to look at me and go, with one hand, they're going to go, this guy's given up his wife and his kids and he's coming over for 3 months to help. On the other hand, they're going to be going, but what the bloody hell does he want in return?
You're not really going to have that support, though.
No.
So do you not feel you're going to be isolated out there?
Oh, completely. But
So you're prepared to be isolated?
I think it has to be that way to begin with. There's a group of you coming in going, well, look, we've trained together before and we're an entity. We are here to help.
As I speak with Steve, I feel he has a point to prove to people by volunteering to fight Islamic State. After fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan myself, I know war isn't easy, and I question if Steve really knows what to expect when he gets to the front line. If volunteers like Steve are captured by Islamic State, the outcome is certain death, filmed for the world to see. With a bounty of $150,000 for any Westerner captured alive, I certainly will face the same fate if caught. Already, several journalists have been executed and their killings filmed and uploaded to the internet. I'm nervous as I head out alone and unarmed, hoping my time as a Royal Marine Commando will prevent me from becoming Islamic State's next propaganda video. I take a flight to Erbil, northern Iraq, Kurdistan, where I'm told most international volunteers start their journey to the front line in Iraq and Syria. I plan to head to the front line, unarmed, on my own and with no external support, a situation very different from when I served in Iraq during my military career. Regardless of the risks ahead, I feel it's the only way to get to the real story behind these volunteers. I make contact with Mohammed. He's a 19-year-old rapper who helps the Kurdish Peshmerga recruit and facilitate international volunteers coming to the region. Mohammed communicates with these men through social media. He recommends taking me to a local market to see where these volunteers buy their equipment before heading to the front line. This is a very different market to what you'll find back in the UK, with the majority of shops selling military weapons, clothing and equipment for the newly arrived fighters. Everything a volunteer could want is catered for here. So any Western fighters that are coming out to North Kurdistan can buy equipment here?
Yeah, they can.
Go to the front line?
Yeah, they can to buy and they're going to the front line. Because, it will be cheaper. You can buy like shoes, $10. You can buy like uniform, $20. So it's cheap, not expensive like the other countries.
While looking around the market, Mohammed introduces me to Roy. He's a volunteer who's recently arrived in Iraq and is buying equipment before he heads to the front line. Roy is a 48-year-old British volunteer who served in the British Army over 20 years ago. Just currently now in the market in North Kurdistan, where I'm with a Western fighter at the moment who's buying equipment that he couldn't bring out with him through the weighting limit and everything else. So Peshmerga have taken him to this market here where you can buy pretty much anything you need, from body armour to boots to actual weapon systems.
These are level 3 plates which will stop the 7.62mm. As you can see, the coverage is your vital organs. However, it doesn't cover your head, doesn't cover the side of your body, doesn't cover your legs, doesn't cover your extremities.
I go with Mohammed and Roy to speak to some of the local shop owners to hear what they think of these international volunteers coming here to fight.
He say like they are come to help us, so I support them and I make the thing cheaper than I sell it sell it to people, not like the people. I'll make it cheaper to the volunteers because they are helping us. They fight side to side, so I have to make it cheaper and I support them too.
It's clear the locals welcome these international volunteers and like the fact that the international community is helping, even if that is only through volunteers. Roy invites me back to his hotel to tell me about his reasons for coming to Iraq to fight. Watching Roy prepare his equipment brings back memories of my own preparations before deploying with the Royal Marines. However, this feels totally different as I was always surrounded by fellow Marines, whereas Roy seems very much on his own. The British government doesn't support volunteers like Roy and Steve coming to fight. Roy tells me he's told to use a cover story in case he was stopped by the police at the airport.
Coming out from the UK was very stressful. Initially I was stopped by the camera checkout crew before boarding the plane, and then I was stopped by the border agency who were disturbed by some of the contents of me military bearing, the clothing I was wearing and some of the equipment I had in me carry-on luggage. The border agency weren't satisfied with my explanation that I was coming to Northern Kurdistan on a humanitarian, as part of a humanitarian mission. They believed I was possibly involved either within fighting groups or potentially as a jihadi moving from northern Kurdistan into Turkey itself or northern Syria. They weren't satisfied with my explanations. They brought in CO-15, the counter-terrorist command from Metropolitan Police, who continually questioned me regarding me appearance, the equipment I had with us, and me cover story.
Roy is passionate about wanting to fight and feels Western governments have let the Kurdish people down in the war against Islamic State, something he's not prepared to do.
The Kurdish people are rich in spirit, but a poor nation. The richness in spirit more than makes up for the lack of materialistic goods that they may have.
So you're prepared to die for this?
I am more than prepared to die. My government has let my government and various other Western governments have let these people down so much. To die for the Kurdish cause, I can't think of a better cause that I'd die for.
The following morning, I join Mohammed, Roy, and 3 other volunteers as they go to the military headquarters to officially join the Peshmerga. Peshmerga, which means one who faces death, are the official military force of the region of Iraqi Kurdistan.
He's saying when we go into the base, it's not in your guys' command, like you go out in the base. You just have to be in the base. You know, if he wanted to make like you can train with the Peshmerga Milan.
Yes.
Okay.
That's work.
And for you guys, it's normal. So, do you have any question for me?
No. Okay.
After witnessing what was only a handshake and a cup of tea, these international volunteers are now part of the Peshmerga and on their way to the front line. As we collect our bags and prepare to go, I was expecting to see an armoured vehicle with an armoured escort to take us to the front line. I wasn't expecting to see 2 taxis. The process to join the Peshmerga seems so effortless. It makes me question their screening and vetting process of these international volunteers. It's been over 20 years since Roy served in the British Army, so I want to know if he still thinks he has the skills to actually make a difference here.
How are you feeling about going to the front line?
Not really nervous. I think there's a possibility I might be a bit too long in the tooth to feel nerves. Obviously trepidation, because this is going to be, these people are actually serious about what they do, but at the same time the training I have received has stood the test of time, and I hope that the level of preparedness I've got myself to will at least mitigate the threat to me. No one's going to be bulletproof, no one's going to not get shot. Sometimes it's just a matter of luck, sometimes it's just a matter of bad tactics. But I feel fairly confident in myself, fairly confident with the people I work with, that we can take the best fight to the battle that we can.
After moving through heavily armed checkpoints, we finally arrive at the frontline base. I could feel the difference in atmosphere here, being closer to the fighting. I asked Roy how he's feeling about his new role with the Peshmerga.
My role now is going to be to instruct, teach and ensure that the blokes are up to scratch on Milan practices, making the weapon, using the weapon system correctly, everything involved in the Milan system. Really straightforward, it's really straightforward stuff. And that is a huge force multiplier for these guys, and it's exactly the sort of reason I've come out here. And if I can get 30 blokes a week, that's maybe been a bit ambitious, 15 blokes a week, over 10 weeks, that's 150 men who are qualified to fight Milan.
So your role now with the Peshmerga is going to be
as a trainer, stroke instructor, stroke mentor.
The local commander decides Roy is best suited to a training role rather than a fighting one, due to his age and his experience on the Milan anti-tank missile system. I leave Roy and push further south in the taxi with Mohammed to go meet another group of international volunteers who have been in Iraq for a while. We're about to go meet about 5 Westerners that are in a position in Dhaka, which is south of Kirkuk. There's another position further north here where there's some British fighters, but we're having trouble to get access to them at the moment. told this group is made up of Americans and Canadians, and they claim to vet their potential volunteers thoroughly. I want to ask them about volunteers who are using this opportunity for their own gain.
A lot of people that come over here were the sort of people who got kicked out of the military and still wanted to do this kind of work, but with no rules, and
thought it was going to be the Wild West.
Yeah.
You got people, buying little personal weapons and then just letting them off just in the middle of the base. As long as they're aiming at the ground, they think that that's okay. Things like that.
It's just Westerners you talk about.
This is a true story about things like that happening. Yeah.
Are you frustrated, John?
Some of the volunteers asked not to be filmed for security reasons. As they prepare their equipment for a patrol, they ask if I would like to go with them.
I don't even know where we are going. I guess we're going out to the front line. Gonna give you a little tour of the area, maybe see some Daesh, do some hunting.
As we head out, John, a former Canadian soldier, explains what made him decide to volunteer.
And I said, well, I might sign for another 3. What are we going to do for the next 3 years? And they said, well, it looks like Afghanistan's not going anywhere. It's very likely that we'll just be in Canada. We're going to do a lot of training. It's like, well, all right, that's not really why I joined the military. So I just left and thought I would go do something else. Within a year, we were in Afghanistan. We were in Kandahar. My guys were in combat. So it was like, fuck. So yeah, that was, I'm still not over that. That was 10 years ago and I'm still not over it. I guess that's why I'm here.
It was interesting to hear John tell me how he was frustrated that he never saw action whilst in the Canadian Army and has come to Iraq for the opportunity to eventually fight. All of these volunteers pay for their own flights, equipment and weapons. They often rely on donation pages on Facebook to fund their trips. However, many volunteers tell me about some of the men who are pocketing donations and pretending to fight, something these men have seen far too often.
Give me liberty or give me death.
The thing that bothers me about the guys who want to be contractors, the guys who are so eager to go join contractors, I mean, if your goal was to make money, just to have a job and like you do this for money, there has to be an easier way to do it. I mean, I didn't come out here to make money. I knew that this was going to bankrupt me. I had to sell my car just in order to buy the ticket to get out here, and I don't have a ticket back. I'm going to have to rely on, fortune to get me back when it's finally time to go. But I mean, that was the whole point of coming out here, is you pay your own way and you don't do it for the money.
As we reach the forward operating base, I'm told his positions regularly come under mortar and rocket attack, as Islamic State positions are a mere 400 meters away. Shivan joined the United States Marine Corps but never completed basic training. He tells me about volunteers who have warrants out for their arrest and are hiding in Kurdistan, including sex criminals.
The Daily Beast published an article about him. How he's like some motorcycle biker guy and he came out here to help the Peshmerga fight. Turned out he was a scam artist and a sex offender. He came out here with the intention of just avoiding the charges he faced back home. I never commissioned. I was part of the Marine Corps for a very brief amount of time. But there's other people with less military experience than me too that came out here. But I mean, if your intentions are genuine, I have no problem with that. But I mean, if they're here to screw everybody over and come here for their own agenda, for their own personal gain, then that's not what I came out here for. And I think those people will cause problems.
I struggle to understand why the Peshmerga don't attempt to screen international volunteers more thoroughly, or why they allow men with no previous military experience to fight alongside them. I get the sense they are just happy for anyone to come and volunteer. It's obvious John is here because he missed out on seeing action with the Canadian Army. There's no doubt that the local troops here respect John and the other volunteers for coming and fighting alongside him. I meet Doc, an American, who's part of another group of volunteers who provide combat medical support to the Peshmerga forces. Doc takes me to his base near Kirkuk, where he tells me how under-equipped and under-trained the Peshmerga are. Doc runs an unconventional charity called Shadows of Hope.
So tell me about your background, Doc. What's your life story?
Well,
I think my life's gonna be long and complicated as shit, and it's not very interesting. But for the last couple of years, what I've basically been doing was that I started my own company, taking donations, and what we do is travel around the world. We go to places that other organizations can't get to, right? Like Northern Burma, the Red Cross has a problem getting into Northern Burma. Same thing with Doctors Without Borders, okay? You know, you have a place like that, you have like no medical care, you have like 3 different war zones going on in that one small country, and nobody can really get inside to actually give medical care, medical aid. There's a few small organizations, but it's never enough. So my company's specialty is the very dangerous, the very remote, the inaccessible, you know, things like that. So we specialize in basically exactly what's happening here. You know, you have the world's most dangerous organization. It's a very complicated area. Kurdistan is very complicated when it comes to political. You know, you got Iraq, you got all this other stuff going on. There's not a whole lot going on here just because, again, it's so damn complicated. It's beyond anything I've ever seen before. My own company is a non-profit group, so I make no money from it. I literally have nothing. If I ever go back home to Las Vegas, which is where my original home was, there'd be nothing there for me, you know?
So about family, you got any family anywhere?
I do. They're not very happy with my decisions in life so far, but to be honest, look where it's led me. You know, I've done surgery in a war zone, I've fallen asleep to mortar strikes, I've been on TV in 4 different countries, I've actually created an emergency medical system in 2 different countries. I've helped create it from the ground up. It's kind of one of the things I'm hoping to start here as well. All right, I've been in movies. I got cast in a movie last time I was around the Indian area. This has been an amazing life, and honest to God, if I would have stayed home, if I would have finished off medical school and all that, I'd be sitting in an office all day, you know, just seeing person after person working 9 to 5 and not doing anything. You know, now I'm sitting here less than 20 kilometers away from ISIS, meeting all kinds of weird and crazy people like Polish over here. But it's not been an easy life, but it's been a good life.
Despite his nickname, Doc never completed medical school, nor did he serve in the military. But after speaking with him, it's clear he has a great deal of medical and combat experience. Stefan recently left the British Army and explains how volunteers are not mercenaries, as they don't receive any form of payment and are often out of pocket by coming to fight. Volunteering seems to be a sense of duty to many of these men.
The thing that made it personal was that the lack of help that they were receiving, which is nothing to do with anyone else's fault. It's all politics at the end of the day. So I took it upon myself to get myself out here with the kit that I brought with me, which I bought myself, and try and help out as much as I can. I've received no funding from anyone, and everything I've got I've bought myself. All the flights I paid for, all the travelling I paid for, all the kit I paid for. My gain out here is just to help the people, help the locals, help the army. You know, it's bad enough as it is, and I'm just wanting to try and improve things. I mean, an hour and a half to an hospital if you're bleeding, that's no good. This is why I want to be here, to try and administer that aid when I first can, so it gives them that fighting chance for them to make it to the hospital. Whereas I'm here just to solely help, gain nothing out of it but the pleasure of helping these people, and the amount of respect that they've shown me is truly unreal. You know, I feel proud and honoured to be here.
All right, basically this is supposed to be an actual ambulance, but once we actually tore through it, okay, there's a ton of shit that they don't need. They have too much of the crap that we actually need. The thing is all kinds of fucked up. Basically what we did, and we're actually setting up an actual system here, we're actually designing this to be our actual field hospital. What's going to happen is that anybody who's actually injured in the front, instead of going an hour and a half to Sulaymaniyah, from the front line to Sulaymaniyah itself, that's where 90% of the casualties are going to come from. It's not going to be in the field, it's going to be on the way to the hospital itself, okay? So we have an hour and a half, but there's going to be no medical care whatsoever. This is now our forward field hospital, okay? This is where any kind of casualties in the front line are going to go first, straight to this here, okay? We are going to patch them up, we're going to fix them up, we're going to stabilize them, and then once they're stable, we're going to throw them in the back of a stretcher, they're going to be thrown in the back of a technical vehicle, and they're taken straight to Sulaymaniyah itself.
I head out with some of the volunteers and local soldiers as they go on a night patrol around the base. The equipment the Peshmerga has is basic. They lack equipment I used to take for granted, such as night vision goggles, and I'm nervous as we push out as they have no way of seeing ISIS fighters in the dark. We're in a position where we're going to go firm now. We're just going to wait here for a couple of hours to overwatch the ground and make sure no ISIS fighters are coming in close to attack. Mohammed was just telling me there about a position just down the road, probably about 2 miles away. That was attacked not long ago, where over 20 Peshmerga were taken prisoner after a battle with ISIS. Half of their men heads were cut off. The other half, I presume, dead because they've never found them. Let's go.
What just happened there? Trying to find out who each other are in the dark. It's quite hard to tell because you can't see each other, so the shouts. Stop, call forward, see if you can tell who they are. If not, stop them again, ask them who they are, try to identify who it is that's coming towards you, see if it's friendly or not. Luckily it's been friendly, so you haven't had to do anything rash.
Singing on patrol was a first for me and shows the lack of training these men have had. These are the sort of things Stefan and the others are hoping to change the longer they spend with the Peshmerga.
Yes, I do feel Western fighters can make a difference. If they come out with the right attitude, we can make a good name for ourselves. And part of that good name.
Once back off patrol, Doc explains in more detail about his frustrations working alongside the Peshmerga. He feels international volunteers are used more for public relation purposes rather than fighting. He believes the commanders don't want to see volunteers engaging and dying in combat with Islamic State.
200 Westerners here. Most of these guys are highly trained, right? Ex-military guys. They want to come here to make a difference. Some of us want to die. Some of us just want to fight. Some of us want to actually make a difference. Some of us want to free Kurdistan. The point is, we're all here to do something. But you have all these generals and majors and colonels fighting. They all want Westerners. They all want the shiny new toy to show off to other generals and other majors. But they deliberately told us that we will never be deployed to the front lines for an actual frontline operation. Okay? Because dead Westerners are bad PR. We've been told straight up to our face that we're only here for morale purposes. We're only here for PR purposes. Okay, we've had guys who've been here for 6 months. They've seen 2 operations, and in those 2 operations, they've seen combat twice. And during those combat, both those times were not intentional. They were either an ambush, and then one was a surprise attack, and that was it. And you get all these guys who are here. You get a bunch of pumped up Marines and UK. SAS and all these other people from all over the world. You tell them they're going to fight the world's most hated organization, which is what we're all here for. You lock them in a room, you put them in a base, you tell them they can't leave, they can't talk to their families, they can't go to any one of the cities around here, they're stuck in this small base. What do you think is going to happen? Of course we're going to start tearing each other apart because we're all bored as hell. There's nothing else for us to do. We're going to turn inward with all this, everything that's going on. And it's just, and people wonder why there's all this infighting here. I'm done. I'm like 99.9% done. They have to make this kind of super fucking awesome offer. Like you have free reign of the hospital, free reign of the troops, free reign of the bases to do whatever the fuck you want, and then you can stay.
I've returned to the UK to meet AD, a former British soldier who has recently returned from the fighting. When AD landed in the UK, he was arrested under the Terrorism Act at Manchester Airport by counter-terrorism police. I've come to his mother's house to find out how she feels about AD fighting and being arrested for terrorism. At the time of filming, AD was out on police bail.
Hiya, Phil. You alright, love? Nice to see you. I knew what ISIS was because I'd seen it on the television. As soon as he said that was it. I just thought, right, he's not going to come back from this. Or if he does come back, he'll come back in a box and I'll not see him again. And when I do go, he said, if you text me, don't say that you're my mum. He said, because I'll be going, with a different name. He said, so you can apply to the texts, but don't make it sound like you're a family member. And I just wanted him to know that I loved him. But you couldn't say any of that to him, and I didn't want anything to happen to him, and me not have told him the day before that I loved him, or that day, because I couldn't have lived with that. But that's just me being a soft mum, you know how it is. But the day that he told me was horrible. I did cry, and I cried a lot, and I really wanted to get on the phone and say to him, please don't go, just think of us. But his argument always was, well, think of them women over there that were getting raped daily, the children that are getting killed daily. Would you want me to stay here and do nothing when I know I can go over there and make a difference? I think that we've got a country of very brave young men that aren't given the credit for what they do. And, you know, a lot of people say, you know, they shouldn't do it, should leave it up to their own people to fight. The only idea of them going out to fight is because they can't fight against the ISIS, they don't know how to, and they don't have the weapons or they know how to do it. So the fact that these young British lads, you know, are giving up their time and very probably their life is really commendable, and I have nothing but respect for them. Nothing at all.
I head to Sinjar city, which is located northwest Iraq, not far from the Syrian border. Sinjar lies on Highway 47, a main supply route for Islamic State, between their stronghold Raqqa in Syria and Mosul in Iraq. The population of Sinjar city are predominantly Yazidi. Yazidis are an ethnic group who believe in God as creator of the world, which is placed under the care of 7 holy beings or angels. They are not Muslims. In August 2014, the Islamic State captured the city, which led to the massacre of 5,000 people and resulted in the displacement of over 50,000 civilians who were forced to flee Islamic State into the mountains of Sinjar. Yazidis are targeted by Islamic State in its campaign to purify Iraq and its neighbouring countries from non-Islamic influences. Yazidis are seen as pagan devil worshippers by Islamic State. ISIS captured many young Yazidi girls and women in Sinjar and took them to markets to sell as sex slaves. This footage shows Islamic State fighters talking about selling and raping of Yazidi women. It's sickening footage like this that has motivated many of the international volunteers to come and fight Islamic State. Here in Sinjar is a group of international volunteers who are helping support their Yazidi forces as they plan to liberate the city. One of the volunteers is Mike from the United Kingdom. He's based in Sinjar and tells me about what he used to do before he joined these forces.
I'm originally born in Aylesbury, did my military service in the French Foreign Legion, did almost 5 years, invalided out from a parachuting injury. After that, bummed about, got married, was married for 16 years, got 2 kids, got a proper job, went as long as I could go, divorced, quit regular work, became a dance teacher for 7 years, went back to Thailand to teach in a Muay Thai gym, and have ended up here.
Mike has clearly had a colourful past. I sense he's an adventurer, always looking for a new challenge. As we move closer to the front line, he tells me about the frustrations of being a volunteer and not being allowed to get involved in much of the fighting.
Basically, I came to Sinjar because this was where it's happening. I've been in Kurdistan for nearly 5 months now. Constantly trying to get in on the action and not being allowed. I'm involved in training people ready to go round the eastern flank without saying too much. A lot of that is going, there's 2 towns that need to be taken. There's an intersection of Highway 47 that needs to be held, and then there's a main objective that needs to be taken. I encourage people to come out and fight. There's no fighting really here. I mean, if you're prepared to get yourself on a terrorist watch list, you can go and fight with the PKK. And the PKK basically are the only ones doing the fighting. They're in Sinjar city, and they are the only ones that I would say really actively engage ISIS on a daily basis.
As we arrive at the forward operating base, Mike's team receives orders to go on a reconnaissance mission to gain intelligence on Islamic State movements.
So where are we going, Mike? What are we doing?
The mission we're going to do just now is head towards the south side of the mountain. We're doing a reconnaissance on an objective that is important in the up-and-coming push that I can't say too much about.
So how many men are going with us on this?
We've got all of the Westerners, so there's 4 Westerners.
As they prepare to go on patrol, I'm surprised at the lack of ammunition these men are carrying. Also the lack of radios, maps and other equipment I would consider essential for this type of operation. After a short drive in the truck, we can go no further due to the terrain, and so we dismount to continue on foot. The volunteers do a final equipment check before heading deeper into the mountain on their mission. This patrol is made up of 4 international volunteers and led by 2 local Yazidi soldiers. We move slowly on foot and are warned to stick to the path due to the threat of improvised explosive devices which are prevalent in this area.
What's going on now, mate? Bloody knackered. First time on patrol in a long, long time. A couple of us have been ill, not able to keep up, need a rest. How long have we been going?
Half an hour.
Yeah. I mean, these local boys, they're all in their 20s. They smoke like troopers, but they're mountain goats. Us old fuckers, well, these young fuckers as well. You know, we need a bit of an easier pace.
After an hour of climbing, the patrol finally reaches the top, where they're going to overwatch and get eyes onto Islamic State positions. Mike tells me that before the volunteers arrived at Sinjar, the local soldiers didn't carry out vital intelligence gathering on Islamic State before an attack. He says it's been a slow process training the locals up on basic military tactics.
If you want to come up just a touch, you can see the objective I was talking about. Just in front of us here, this is all ISIS territory in front of us now. We're looking at the cement factory, it's in ISIS territory, and we're looking at the main Highway 47 from Raqqa to Mosul, which is held by ISIS. Just on the left of it.
To the right of the white building, the white building.
Can we see any features on that bunker to the west?
It looks like a bunker because it's dark in the middle between 2 white spots, but it's not a bunker. Okay. It looks like 4, containers, cylindrical containers. Nothing crazy.
I feel like if they were aiming for that structure, it would be flattened by now.
No, not necessarily, but there would be, the pipework would be damaged.
The men spend an hour on task watching Islamic State movements in and around the cement factory. They feel they've gained enough intelligence that they call the orders to return back to their patrol base.
You can still see traces, shoes, clothes, the many parts of the mountain. It's like this. I'm seeing bones. These are human remains. These people didn't stand a chance. They didn't stand a chance. Yeah. If I was religious, I'd make the sign of my religion, but I'm not religious. So, again, it makes me sad that these people had to die like this. Just left out here. But that's why we want to fight.
Saying that it was an old man, and that he was probably killed by Daesh, and the body was scattered because the dogs had gotten to it. It wasn't properly buried, so appreciate you guys burying it.
So the dogs have eaten a human being that ISIS killed?
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But at least now he's had a burial.
Islamic State massacred 5,000 people here. Men, women and children were killed, and their bodies were just left to rot. It's emotional to see the Yazidis and volunteers make a makeshift grave for the remains of this person.
What was the mission a success?
The mission was a success from my point of view. I got good intel from that. I got a good picture. I saw a lot of things that we've not been told before. And it also feeds into the intel that I got a couple of weeks ago when I OP'd from a different position. So for me, it builds a better picture. On the downside, it looks like it's going to be a hard position to take. It's intact, unless they lay waste to it before we go.
The following morning, Mike takes me to a base on the fringes of the city. When Islamic State captures Sinjar, thousands of civilians tried to flee up this winding mountain road. As we drive down, it's littered with destroyed cars and a scattering of personal belongings left behind when Islamic State targeted civilians as they tried to get to safety up in the mountain.
So we're on our way down. Now we start the descent into Sinjar. The light's not good. You should start to be able to see the edges, southern edges of the city from here. These have been people trying to escape. The car wasn't working or got hit. If you look closely, you start to see just general...
Hit by what?
IS, bullets, things like mortar rounds would have gone off here. Again, I'm not sure on numbers. I only know that a significant number were massacred.
So how would you think the people must have felt, Mike, when they were escaping?
Abject terror.
We reached the base on the edge of the city, which is home to around 30 Yazidi soldiers and the rest of Mike's team. The volunteers are involved in providing training and mentoring to the local forces as they prepare to retake their homes back in the upcoming battle.
We're going to meet the rest of the Westerners team, the other part of our team. There's five Americans. We're hoping to get up to the top OPs there that look over the west side of the city. Give us a good view of Sinjar. This is my domain. I am a warlord here. This is Casson Devo's AO. This is the training. This is where our team's doing the training.
That's when you go through the rest. That's called remedial action. That's when you'll go through the rest. You'll lift up the top cover, all right? Because maybe there's a piece of dirt in there, maybe there's a rock in there.
Mike wants to take me to one of the machine gun positions that overwatches Sinjar city. Thousands of civilians managed to flee the city before ISIS came. Those that didn't were killed. The city now is solely occupied by ISIS.
How you feeling, Mike?
All right, this is a much better place than yesterday, that's for sure.
Just in front of us there is Sinjar City. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was. And coalition do airstrikes on there throughout the day. And I can hear fire in the background. To take that city back, it's going to take a lot of men.
Dude, we hit the mosque with the dishka.
Yeah.
And
Uncle Mike.
Josh lit it the fuck up. And they took incoming that night. And then there was a firefight.
Very upset about
and then
it.
there was about 12 airstrikes.
Well, they always get pissed when you do.
See that white building?
So it was a good night. That was the first night here.
You don't count windows.
You might light up a mosque in a little while when they clean the gun.
Why are you going to target a mosque?
Because that usually pisses them off.
Follow it.
Hey, James.
Simple as.
James.
What?
So what are you trying to do? You're trying to stir ISIS so they fight back?
Money.
Basically.
Yes.
It starts to get them out, it starts to get them riled.
It was in front of you. It was in front of you. It was in front of you.
Do you think it's the right thing to do, is to start targeting mosques?
Why not?
We did target a mosque.
They target any antiquities of any other religion. So why is a mosque any different to anybody else? I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not anything. To me, it's a building. But if you want to talk about ISIS, they destroy churches, they destroy temples, they destroy anything, antiquities, ancient monuments. They're quite happy to destroy anything.
But do you think it's right to do tit for tat?
Yeah.
They already want, the commanders of the Yazidi want everything destroyed anyway.
The Intelligence reports from coalition aircraft suggest ISIS do in fact use mosques in Sinjar to store their weapons and to arrange meetings for their commanders.
And to the left of that is a double set of buildings.
After I turned the camera off, our position came under mortar attack after engagement with the mosque. As I part ways with Mike and his team, I've arranged to meet with another group of volunteers. Just in the hook now, where I'm going to meet another group of Western fighters. This group are quite secretive and they don't want to tell me their location, so they're giving me somewhere to meet them. I'm now by a hotel in the middle of the city where I've been told to wait and hopefully they'll turn up. We'll wait and see. After waiting 45 minutes, they finally arrive. These volunteers are very cautious. They challenge me and ask to see my passport. Direct Nosha are a Christian militia group that operated on the front line north of Mosul. Within the group, there are around 10 international volunteers. Once they are happy with who I say I am, they tell me to follow them in my vehicle to the frontline position. Jim is a 54-year-old British volunteer from the north of England. Before coming to fight in Iraq, Jim, who's a grandfather, worked as a delivery driver. He's never served in the military and this is his first time in a combat zone.
Incoming rockets, incoming mortars. There's no set pattern in them, they land where they land.
Does it scare you?
Well, obviously your butt twitches a bit, but it's down to God's grace really, isn't it?
So we're saying it's luck if it hits you?
It's their luck. It's a lucky hit for them.
You're out here trying to prove yourself to be someone.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't anybody back home. I mean, what I'm out here for is to try and make a difference. Try and make a difference. I think I've more than proved myself. I mean, there was them that said I would get killed within the first fortnight to 3 weeks. But I've more than proved myself.
So do now your group respect you?
I think most of them do, yeah. Yeah, I think they do, like.
But a lot of people say the white van man in Iraq fighting against ISIS, it's random, isn't it?
Life's random. Life's random.
Jim has been on the front line for 4 months now. Despite having no previous military experience, I can see that his men respect him. I do question, however, what difference men like Jim with no combat experience can actually make in this battle against the Islamic State. However, after speaking with Jim in more detail, it's clear he's humbled to be here to help in any way possible, even if that isn't just by fighting.
I'm 54. Some of these guys, what's in the 20s, what's finished the force services, military services, not doing anything. Come and join us. I'll find a home for them, you know.
So you're encouraging people to come out here?
No, I don't encourage anybody to come out, but rather than write computer keyboard warriors, that's what we call them. I want to do this, I want to do that. This is what should be done, this is how it should be done. As I say, I'm not a trained soldier, but I think I've done well over the past year and a half, 9 months. I think I've gained a lot of respect. If I'm asked to brush a floor, I'll brush a floor. I might help. I'm not in any way a qualified soldier. I'm just somebody what cares what was happening.
From speaking to different volunteers, I've learned that the most common reason they come to fight is because of the lack of support from Western countries.
As an American citizen, I not only do I feel responsible, I still feel it's a duty to come here and help these people in any way possible. Because again, it is a duty and a responsibility of our nation and the American spirit, which I truly believe to continue helping people. This is not necessarily the mistakes that our government has made, but as I believe the American spirit lies within the American people. And I believe out here our sharpest sword is love and compassion, and that's what I intended to bring here. I'm not a, I'm surrounded by heroes. I've seen the atrocities that was going on vicariously through the news, of course, and the internet, and I can't help but to feel slightly responsible for the situation that was over here. At the age of 35, when I absolutely did not have to come here, again, I felt it in my heart that this is a responsibility of mine. I feel like I could never leave any kind of job half-ass, and I feel like that this job was kind of left half-ass, and it's a responsibility of those of us that can to come here and continue to help these people. I'm here to keep the fighters, to keep the freedom fighters combat ready in any way that I can.
I've come to see how things have changed for Doc, the combat medic, after meeting him 6 months ago on the front line. He's finally been given permission to set up a medical facility in the local hospital. His group of volunteers, Shadows of Hope, now provide medical training to the troops on the front line, as well as working in a local hospital.
This is working by the Kobas.
Mr. Kamal is my friend. We've been through this past month, we've been through so much together, and we've had this up and down ride with his family and everything else that's here, and that I don't want to see him die and I don't want to see him sick. We have saved his life through our intervention here, but he is just one of hundreds that are having the same issue. And we're still not even 100% sure what's going to be happening with him because we're going back and forth so much. We're spending so much time fighting with the other doctors and fighting the medical system here that, we're forgetting what we're really here for, which is people like Mr. Kamal here. I mean, there have been some major improvements here because of what we've been doing, some major improvements. The lab is turning over, the lab is already pretty good. There's been some issues with a couple different things here and there. But, for right now, everything's on the improvement. But it's hitting these old problems again and again is what's causing the main issues. Johnny? It's actually kind of funny is like when I'm having a really bad day, what I actually do is like climb on top of that crane. Yeah. Because on the very top of that, it's my happy place because no one else can get up there. No one else can threaten to kick your ass or kill you. And it seems like when you're up there, like you see how small the hospital is and how small Sully is and just how ridiculous it is for like you to be up there. It just kind of feels like everything is like so below you, like it's all so minuscule. And like really, to me, it's about clearing your thoughts out and getting everything sorted.
So you climb that crane?
Almost, yeah, about once a week I have to climb up there on really bad days. And I go to the very end of it, and I sit on the edge, dangle my feet over, and I just think for about an hour or two. I've been climbing, like I said, I got a really big Robin Hood complex, Altair, Zorro. I feel like who I wanted to be when I was a little kid. I feel like that hero, I feel like that villain. I feel like the people in those video games and those movies. I feel like, I'm places where nobody else can go. And this is my motivation for being here, my motivation to keep going. And up there, you're so alone and everything is so silent and it just all seems so small that it just really puts things in perspective. And that's why I love it.
On the 16th of October 2016, it was announced that a joint offensive by the Iraqi military, Kurdish forces and the international coalition would start to retake the Sunni city of Mosul. Islamic State seized the city in June 2014. The operation to retake the city started with the Kurdish Peshmerga to the east, taking key towns and villages so the Iraqi army could punch their way into the city from the south and the east. This is the largest deployment of Iraqi troops since the coalition invasion in 2003. Embedded with the Peshmerga 7th Armoured Division is a British volunteer called Alan. Alan has fallen out with many of their other international volunteers in Iraq and Syria, as he questions their motives for volunteering.
Ex-British Army, been here 23 months with the Peshmerga. Last 8 months been with this brigade, sitting on top of Vashika Mountain. This is what it's about. This is 8 Ks roughly to Mosul there. Got Fazliya, got another village here we're about to take, got Bashika here. So we've basically got Daesh hemmed in, and we're going to start clearing the rats out their holes, basically.
So how are Islamic State as an enemy?
Oh, they ain't scared to die. They're not scared to fight. Anybody thinks there's some more Peshmergas. Anybody thinks that they're Mickey Mouse. I think again, what makes them so dangerous is they're not scared to die.
Have you been coming up against a lot of suicide bombers?
There's been a few. A friend of mine was killed in one the other day as well. So, but we're lucky. We got the coalition, we got the tanks, we got the Milan. So that's what it is.
So why are you here?
Look at you've been with the Peshmerga. The world stood by and watched. It didn't help. And these guys, look at this. This is the weapons they've got, and the world sat by. AKs. Where's the weapons? Where's American weapons? Where's British weapons? So I couldn't sit by and watch while the world sat by any longer, basically. So I came, making a difference? Nah, probably not, but I'm here. Whereas everybody's here now. You got the Americans, you got everybody rushing to say that they defeated Daesh. It wasn't. It was these guys. It was the Peshmerga.
They like their selfies here, don't they?
They do. They love them. Most Westerners that came here, full of shit. There's so many people have came here and used this war at the Peshmerga and the Kurdish people for their own aims. There's been a lot of scams. A lot of people it's the hero thing on Facebook, it's the friends list, it's this and that. For most of them, not saying all, there is some good guys that have been here. But for me, it's about this. It's about being with the Peshmerga, it's about helping make a small difference. It's not about money, it's not about fame. It's about helping these guys defeat an enemy that if not defeated here, will only get stronger.
So what are Peshmerga like as fighters, from what you've seen?
They've got balls. They're lacking, what they lack in training and weapons, they make up in spirit and bravery.
Social media plays a big role among the volunteers. They use social media to get out here. They use it to set up donation pages, post pictures for their followers, and also to argue among each other. The more volunteers I meet and speak to, the more I learn that there are tensions between the different groups of international volunteers. Many of the volunteers I've met claim Alan is a con artist who's asking for donations on Facebook and keeping the money while staying in hotels in the city, while he claims that he's on the front line fighting. In return, Alan often has several arguments online with people making accusations against him. As the commanders plan for the upcoming assault on a village, I meet another group of volunteers that are providing medical cover for the battle. One of these volunteers is Dave, an American Christian from a group called the Free Burma Rangers.
I'm Dave Eubank of the Free Burma Rangers. Here we're called the Free Kurd Rangers. We're very small, like a little drop, but I believe that, God sends little drops of rain and it forms a river. So we're just like you and others who care, we want to make a difference and believe that, for me, I believe with God's help, we will make a difference. Well, I think we're all made in God's image. Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, agnostics, atheists, we're all made in His image. God is love. He loves us all. And so I'm happy to work with my Muslim brothers, my Yazidi brothers, anyone who doesn't shoot me. And those that shoot me, I try to avoid that and pray for them. Our role right now as we go forward into the different villages to clear out ISIS is to stand with them, give medical care, pray with them. And then also, if there's villagers fleeing, the main job of the Free Burma Rangers is to help those villagers. So we've got a medical team in the back following this whole convoy to provide care and send them off to whatever the Kurds have prepared.
Just after midday, the general gives the orders to start their attack and the Peshmerga start to move out. As we move towards the occupied village, Islamic State attempt to put up a resistance by firing rockets and mortars at us. My own vehicle is ambushed and we're narrowly missed by a rocket on approach to the village. we approach the edge of the village, civilians are seen trying to flee. The Islamic State often use suicide bombers, so civilians are treated with caution.
What's going on, Alan?
Just sure it's fine over there, that side of the road.
As the fire increases, I'm told to get back in my vehicle. After 3 hours of fighting, the village is declared liberated. Most Islamic State fighters were either killed or escaped. However, some fighters tried to hide among the civilian population, but are soon found and arrested.
This guy here just gave him a cigarette because Dash didn't allow them smoke or anything. I've given him a packet of cigarettes as well.
So this man's just had his first cigarette back in...
Vichy Peshmerga. Peshmerga. Vichy Peshmerga.
How do you feel, Alan, to be the only British volunteer that's here fighting, liberating cities and towns near Mosul? Want to start again?
It's just an honour to be with these guys. A pure honour. This is the Peshmerga in their war.
How does it feel for you?
An honour. I'm ecstatic. I can't put it into words. Can't put it into words.
How does it make you feel seeing all these civilians?
Happy. I'm as happy as the Peshmerga. This is what they fought for all this time. Peshmerga fought for these people to free them. Now the world needs to never forget what these guys have done. Never forget what these guys fought for. They now have, the world now has to help rebuild. You've got over 2 million IDPs. Kurdistan's normal population, what, 5.5 million? They've got an extra 2 million plus. The world needs to help.
Hundreds of civilians come out into the streets to welcome the liberating Peshmerga soldiers. Men shave off their beards, put on their favourite football shirts and smoke for the first time, which was banned under Islamic State. This soldier has finally been reunited with his mother and 4 children, who he hasn't seen since his village was captured by Islamic State in 2014. Thousands of battle-hardened fighters are spread across the city. They're using drones to direct suicide bombers onto their targets and drop grenades on Iraqi troops. Mosul is ISIS's last stand in Iraq, as their fighters have pledged to fight to the death. I leave the Kurdish Peshmerga and join the Iraqi army, who are currently fighting a street-to-street battle in the city of Mosul. Peshmerga aren't allowed to enter the actual city of Mosul due to them being Kurdish and the city of Mosul being an Arab territory. I go to find out if any of the international volunteers have managed to join the Iraqi army as they push through the streets of Mosul. I managed to embed with the Golden Division, who are Iraqi special forces. ISIS have had over 2 years to prepare their defences in the city of Mosul. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are still trapped in the city, which is slowing down the Iraqi operation. As I drive closer to the fighting, the devastation in the city is evident. Throughout my journey, Islamic State have left a trail of death and destruction in their wake. I finally reach a patrol house where the Iraqi troops are stopped to have their lunch before they push on. It's as fast forward as we can go now. Through this hole here is what they're engaging Islamic State from. They've got snipers which is holding up this division at the moment now. So they're just waiting for the orders and they're going to push forward from here. But you've got to keep low because rounds keep coming in. About the rounds I just put down from this rooftop, I'm going to get off here just before they zoom in on us and start putting rounds down on us. Iraqi troops push out of the building and advance towards the compounds they were just engaging to clear them from Islamic State fighters.
See there behind me. No one's coming in there.
I'm told by the Iraqi troops that international volunteers are not welcome to fight alongside the Iraqi army due to the fact that coalition special forces are fighting alongside them, and the fact that these volunteers haven't been security cleared.
I finally made it into the centre of Mosul city. None of the Western volunteers actually made it into the city with the Iraqi army to fight. Their reasons for coming here are varied. Have they made a difference in this war? Time will tell.
The final part of my journey brings me back to United Kingdom. It's estimated around 300 volunteers have travelled to Iraq and Syria to fight Islamic State. Around 30 of these volunteers have been killed, 5 of which were British.
Just on the way to meet the parents of a volunteer who was killed in Syria. Costa joined the YPG and died in the battle. Like myself, Costa was a former Royal Marine, and his parents had agreed to meet me to talk about why he volunteered and how he actually died.
John? That's Daesh positions. How my arcs? That's our positions. Daesh. Alright lads, I don't know if you can I don't know how well you can hear this. I'll try and talk real slow. It's just a video. If I can explain what's going on, I guess. Save me doing it in words. So I'm in Sinjar city. It's on the other side of Mount Sinjar, and I'm here with the YPG and the Peshmerga are here as well. And we're fighting ISIS, who are about 200 meters away now from the century point. We're in a small part of the city. We're on high ground, and on 3 sides we've got ISIS, and the 4th side behind us we've got access road up onto the mountain and back to our side. We get under contact every day pretty much, under effective enemy fire from Deutschke, small arms and sniper rifles. 2 days ago my buddy was shot in the leg, Matthew Kowalski. Dijon. We've had a few days before, well, maybe a week before we got here, one of the Westerners got blown up with an RPG, and he had shrapnel in his head, and he's going home now. He can't move the left side of his body.
So my name's Vasiliki Schofield, and I'm the mother of Konstantinos Eric Schofield. who died in Syria in 2015. I think his motivations for joining the military were ultimately he wanted to help people, and he found the Royal Marines to be, he told me that he felt that they were intelligent people. He'd spent a lot of time talking to Royal Marines before he decided to join up. He said they're intelligent people, they're fit, they do good humanitarian work, they do rescues, they're kind of more independent thinking. So he joined the Royal Marines because he felt that in the British military they were the ones who best represented him. And he told me he was going on the ships with his troop. He hadn't told me he'd left the military or anything. And he went to Syria. And I'll forever be grateful to the British military because they phoned up and asked where they could send his testimonial. And I was like, what testimonial? He's still working for you. And they were like, sorry, he's not. And then I knew he'd gone to Syria. So I contacted him on Facebook. And he said, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want you to find out. I thought I'd be back before you even knew I'd gone. So he went in around about the 7th of December. He arrived and he died on the 3rd of March.
And how did you find out that he had been killed?
The reporters descended on our house, and someone called. My husband shut the door and wouldn't talk to anyone. I came back from work, but before I got back, Chris had a phone call from a Guardian reporter and had said, "What do you know?" And the Guardian reporter said, "We've heard he's been killed," and that was how we found out. And then, you try and rationalise, and you'd heard about an Australian, Ashley Johnson, who'd been killed just a short time before, and we thought maybe they've confused it with him. But then we got a call from the Kurdish community in London and they confirmed it. He phoned once and his dad took the call, and his question was, when are the British coming? When are the British coming? And we had to say to him, the British aren't coming. There was an election coming up. They weren't going to do anything. And essentially, I think if the British had done something at that point, they might have been able to help curb ISIS properly, but they left it too late. And the British never went. Never helped him, never helped anyone there, actually.
So if you don't mind talking about it, could you explain to me how he died?
He was in an APC evacuating civilians and wounded soldiers, fighters, from a village Tel Hamas, a village near Tel Hamas. And he'd done several runs already, and his mates were saying to him, you've got to rest, you've got to stop. But the guy who was manning the gun, I think, on the APC was shot, and my son took over. And when his friends said to him, his colleagues in the Tubba or whatever said, stop, he was like, well, if I don't go, a Kurd's going to have to go. Why should it be a Kurd and not me? So he carried on, and he got taken out by a shrapnel from an RPG. He wasn't malicious, he didn't feel a need to fight, he wasn't anti-Muslim, he just wanted to, it was his way of responding really to a world in pain. And that was to do what he could in the best way he could. Of all things, he hated apathy. He couldn't stand apathy. And I think he was disgusted, actually, by the British government's apathy. Well, my world has been completely broken, and it will never be mended. So actually, I'm heartbroken at losing him, as I would be if he died in any way. I feel proud of him, though, because he did what he thought was right, and he made a positive difference, and his death had meaning. I don't like bloodshed, but with what's happened since he died, I comfort myself that if his actions helped the Kurds take out another 10 ISIS supporters, that's 10 fewer who are going to come to England and commit atrocities here. People had been devastated, really, here. Morale was quite low across the globe, I think, because of ISIS's actions. And the way it was so unchecked, it just swept across that area, leaving decimation. And his death meant that there were answers to that, and that people could make differences, and I hold on to that.
We've had two martyred, two Kurds that were shot, that were blown up by mortars, about 50 metres up that way. I'll show you. Two of the Westerners as well got a building dropped on them by a mortar. It just blew the building up that they were in. Yeah, we're not attacking. We just hold this ground and we exchange small arms fight pretty much. I guess part of the reason I've done this video as well, in case I catch it up, because fucking it happens, like, you know what I mean? So if I don't know. If I'm dead when you watch this, I'm fucking happy here, lads. I'm happy here. I've not been as happy as this for a long time. Well, for a long time. This is exactly where I need to be.
Over the last 4 years, around 300 volunteers have come to fight Islamic State both in Iraq and in Syria. Some of these men have paid the ultimate price and will never return home. During my 3 years covering the conflict, I've met many of these volunteers who all come from different backgrounds and all have different personal reasons for coming here to fight. But the one thing that unites them all is the destruction of ISIS. Islamic State's caliphate is now slowly crumbling away and they're losing the battle. We'll never really know how effective these volunteers have been in actual destruction of ISIS. But there's no doubt the Kurdish forces appreciate these men coming here and picking up arms and fighting. Not all of these volunteers have had previous military experience, and it's been an eye-opener for me to see how men who have no combat experience have actually tried to make a difference here in the region. Whatever your opinion on why these volunteers have come, you can't take it away from them that while many governments have been reluctant to commit, these men and women haven't. As they say, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing.
Aren't you scared? I don't know what to think, and you're not here. You got me on the brink of breaking down. I got no time to give love, but right now you're all I'm thinking of. Stay out of my heart. Gotta keep you out of my head. Stay out of my heart. Gotta keep you out of my head.
A lot of people have a tendency to compare us to a modern day ramen food, and sometimes the world needs to see that there's people out there willing to kick down doors and put up a black hood and to start slitting throats. And unfortunately, that's what the world doesn't really understand, which is why we don't talk about more than half the work that we do overseas, because they will not understand.
I get so scared, I'm not sure who to be or who I am. The answers that I seek just can't be found at the bottom of this drink in which I drown. So don't wait for me to speak, stay out of my heart. Gotta keep you out of my head. This can't stop. I can't control my filthy hands.